How's it going? What's going on?
It is all going well. It is all going well, Richa. I've not been able to write down the personal mission statement and the goals and the roles. I've just not had the time to do it, but I am going to do it. Uh, I am going to do it. Yeah.
Perfect. But what's going on in general in life?
Quite busy, Richa. I was kind of, getting a FOMO about putting the work on autopilot. So आज I did out of office with my whole team. So got quite a bit of the work done and just want to get it done before, things get out of hand. So that is one thing that is happening. The magic book ka practice is going on well. Uh, did that chapter on money, and it said that you should give money to two or three or four people each day. So I went out for lunch, so found a few people who asked for money, so I gave it to them. 20 रुपए का नोट दिया. They said coin नहीं देने देने तो नोट दिया, and I smiled when I gave them money. कि I was happy to give it. Because normally when you give money to people, you give it with a straight face. You don't, smile and give it. तो आज मैं smile करके दिया पैसा.
बहुत बढ़िया.
And I also wrote on a 20 rupee note that I am thankful for all the money that I have got throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
One I've kept in my wallet, and one I've kept it on my board in my office. And I also made my vision board on my phone. You can
Oh,
see it.
wow, wow. Please share it.
And
We will like it in the group, WhatsApp group.
I'll I'll share it in the group. And
I also want to make a vision board, man. Wow, maza aa gaya.
so I made this, and I'm going to put it as my phone ka screensaver.
Perfect, beautiful.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So we will start with habit 5 today. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. अपन ने
Hmm.
जो एडवाइस ट्रैप बुक है, एडवाइस ट्रैप बुक का ये एक पार्ट है.
Okay.
तो एडवाइस ट्रैप इस चैप्टर में कवर हो रही है एक तरह से अपनी.
ठीक है.
The concept is same. So habit 5
Hmm.
is seek first to understand, then to be
Hmm.
understood.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we have covered habit number 1, which is be proactive, which is
Hmm.
focus on things which are in your control. Habit
Hmm.
number 2,
Hmm.
begin with the end in the mind, which is the vision board. Getting
Hmm.
clarity in on your values and personal mission
Hmm.
statement and what you want.
Hmm.
Then we did
Hmm.
habit number 3, which is about prioritization
Hmm. Hmm.
and making goals according to the roles and not
Hmm.
focusing on being busy,
Hmm.
but focusing on the results that we want
Yeah.
instead of work and time efficiency.
Hmm.
So habit 4 was about thinking win-win. uh, सामने वाले का फायदा नहीं हो रहा और आपने कोई डील कर ली तो वो आपका भी नुकसान है. डील वही करनी चाहिए जिसमें आपका और सामने वाले दोनों का फायदा हो रहा है
Hmm.
इन एवरी विच पे. इसमें अपन ने इमोशनल बैंक अकाउंट भी यू नो
Hmm.
किया था, विच इज अबाउट कि uh, trust has to
Hmm.
be over time, and it is not about how much time you give,
Hmm.
but it's the trust building, and it is the little things that matter,
Hmm.
not the big things. तो आपकी
Hmm.
relationship पे focus करोगे instead of what you are getting out of the
Hmm.
relationship, then things will start flowing. Welcome, Dipali ji. Is it your first class? Okay. You are on mute, so I will continue with the habit 5, which is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Principle of empathic communication. The heart has its reason, which reason knows not of. Pascal. Suppose you have been having trouble with your eyes and you decide to go to an optometrist for help. After briefly listening to you complain, he takes off his glasses and hands them to you. Please put this on. I've worn this pair of glasses for 10 years now. आपको help होनी चाहिए. मेरे पास घर पे एक्स्ट्रा मैं पहन लूंगा. So you put them on and you it makes your problem worse. आप बोलते हो it is terrible, I can't see. वो बोलता है well what's wrong, they work great for me, try harder. He says I'm trying, everything is blur. वो बोलता है what's the matter with you, think positively. He says I positively can't see a thing. Boy, you are ungrateful, he chides, and after all I have done to help you, you can't see. What are the chances that you will go back to the optometrist the next time you need help? Not very good, I would imagine. You don't have much confidence in someone who doesn't diagnose before he or she prescribes. ये बोल रहा है आप में ट्रस्ट नहीं होता जिसमें डायग्नोजिंग पावर नहीं होती. बट हाउ ऑफन डू वी डायग्नोज बिफोर वी प्रिस्क्राइब इन कम्युनिकेशन. तो ये बोल रहा है आप पहले सामने वाले को समझने की कोशिश तो करो, देन स्पीक. Come on, honey, tell me how you feel. It's hard, but I will try to understand. Oh, I don't know, mom. You don't think it was stupid? Of course, I wouldn't. You can tell me, honey. No one cares for you as much as I do. I only am interested in your welfare. What's making you so unhappy? The child says, oh, I don't know. Come on, honey, what is it? Well, to tell you the truth, I just don't like the school anymore. What? You respond incredulously. What do you mean you don't like school? And after all the sacrifices we made for your education, education is the foundation of your future. You are apply yourself with the older sister does. वो बोल रही है कि आप कैसे बोल सकते हो कि आप you are not satisfied with the school. मदर अपसेट हो जाती बिफोर इवन ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड कि उसका अपसेट क्यों है. उसके लिए अपसेट होना ही नहीं चाहिए. टाइम एंड टाइम अगेन आई हैव टोल्ड यू टू सेटल डाउन. यू हैव द एबिलिटी बट यू जस्ट डोंट apply yourself. Try harder, get a positive attitude about it. अब आप बताओ इसमें अच्छा लगेगा नहीं लगेगा. इन शॉर्ट ये बोल रहा है कि just we have such a tendency to rush in to fix things up with good advice, but we often fail to take time to diagnose, to really deeply understand the problem first. If I were to summarize in one sentence the single most important principle I have learned in the field of interpersonal relations, it would be this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. This principle is key to effective interpersonal communication. Character and communication. Right now, you're reading the book I have written. Reading and writing are both forms of communication. So you are speaking and listening. In fact, those are the 4 basic types of communication. And think of all the hours you spend doing at least one of those of the 4. The ability to do them well is absolutely critical to your effectiveness. Communication is the most important skill in life. We spend most of our waking hours communicating. You have spent years learning how to read and write, years learning how to speak. But what about listening? What training and education you had that enables you to listen so that you can really deeply understand another human being from the individual's own frame of reference? Comparatively, few people have had any training in listening at all. And for the most part, their training has been personality ethic of technique. मतलब character में authentic understanding of आपको किसी को भी influence करना तो you need to first understand. You can't do that with technique alone. If I sense you're using some technique, I sense duplicity and manipulation. I wonder why you're doing it. What are your motives are? I don't feel safe enough to open up myself to you. If you're trying to influence and not to understand, the real key to your influence with me is your example, your actual conduct. Your example flows naturally out of your character or the kind of person who you truly are, not what others says you are, and not what you want me to think you are. It is evident in how I actually experience you. Your character is constantly radiating, communicating. From it, in long run, I will come to interesting, in 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 instantly trust or distrust you your efforts with me. ये बोल रहा है कि जो ट्रस्ट होता है ना, वो इंस्टेंटली पता चल जाता है कि मेरे को ट्रस्ट करना है नहीं करना. If your life runs hot and cold, if you are both caustic and kind, and above all, if your private performance does not square with your public performance, it's very hard for me to open up with you. Then, as much as I may want and even need to receive your love and influence, I don't feel safe enough to expose my opinions and experiences and my tender feelings. Who knows what will happen? But unless I open up with you, unless you understand me and my unique situation and feelings, you won't know how to advise or counsel me. What you say is good and fine, but it doesn't quite pertain to me. You may say you care about and appreciate me. I desperately want to believe that. But how can you appreciate me when you don't even understand me? All I have are your words, and I can't trust words. आप ये बोल रहा है, आप मुंह पे बोल सकते हो कि आई अप्रिशिएट एंड केयर फॉर यू, आई लव यू, आई यू नो ऑल ऑफ दैट, बट मेरे को डीप डाउन में फील नहीं हो रहा. इफ यू आई फील इफ यू डोंट अंडरस्टैंड मी, देन आई कैन नॉट ट्रस्ट दोज वर्ड्स. इट्स ऑल अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग फर्स्ट. I'm too angry and defensive, perhaps too guilty and afraid to be influenced, even though inside I know I need what you could tell me. ये बोला, जब तक आप मेरी यूनिकनेस से इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं है ना, मैं आपकी बात से, आपकी एडवाइस से इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं हो सकता. इंसान को अगर आपको इन्फ्लुएंस करना है, तो पहले उससे आपको इन्फ्लुएंस होना पड़ेगा, जब आप सामने वाले को इन्फ्लुएंस कर पाओगे. आपको सामने वाले को पहले जानना पड़ेगा, उसकी यूनिकनेस को पकड़ना पड़ेगा, उससे खुद को इन्फ्लुएंस करना पड़ेगा. देन you are unless you are influenced by my uniqueness, I am not going to be influenced by your advice. So if you want to be really effective in the habit of interpersonal communication, you cannot do it with technique alone. You have to build the skill of empathic listening on a base of character that inspires openness and trust. And you have to build emotional bank account that create a commerce between hearts. Empathic listening, seek first to understand, involves a very deep shift in paradigm. We typically seek first to be understood. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. Powerful, right?
Yes, yes, very powerful.
They are either speaking or preparing to speak. They are filtering everything through their own paradigms, reading their autobiography into other people's lives. Oh, I know exactly what you feel. I went through the same thing. Let me tell you about my experience. They are constantly projecting their own home movies onto other people's behavior. They prescribe their own glasses for everyone with whom they interact. If they have a problem with someone, a son, a daughter, spouse, employee, their attitude is the person just doesn't understand. That person just doesn't understand. प्रॉब्लम का मतलब ही होता है कि सामने वाला आपको समझ नहीं रहा. A father once told me, I can't understand my kid. He just won't listen to me at all. Let me restate what you just said, I replied. You don't understand your son because he won't listen to you? That's right, he replied. Let me try again. You don't understand your son because he won't listen to you? That's what I said, he impatiently replied. I thought that to understand another person, You needed to listen to him, I suggested. Oh, he said. There was a long pause. Oh, he said again, but the light began to dawn. Oh, yeah, but I do understand him. I know what he's going through. I went through the same thing myself. I guess what I don't understand is why he won't listen to me. This man didn't have the vaguest idea of what was really going on inside his boy's head. He looked into his own head and thought he saw the world, including his boy. That's the case with most of us. अपन खुद के मोनोलॉग, खुद की कन्वर्सेशंस, खुद की इनर वॉइस, खुद के एक्सपीरियंसेस में चल जाते हैं. When another person speaks, we usually listening from our own four levels. We may be ignoring another person, not really listening at all. We may practice pretending, yeah, aha, right. We may practice selective listening, hearing only certain parts of the conversation. We often do this when we are listening to a constant chatter of a preschool child, or we may even practice attentive listening, paying attention and focusing energy on the words that are being said. But very few of us ever practice the fifth level, the highest form of listening, which is empathic listening. When I say empathic listening, I'm not referring to the technique of active listening or reflective listening, which basically involves mimicking what the other person says. That kind of listening is skill based. It is also essentially autobiographical. If you practice those techniques, you may want to project autobiography. You listen to control, to reply, to manipulate. When I say empathic listening, I mean listening with intent to understand. I mean seeking first to understand, to really understand. ये बोल रहा है गोल होना चाहिए सुनते वक्त कि मुझे समझना है, मुझे समझना है, मुझे समझना है. It's not about replying. It's an entirely different paradigm. Empathic listening gets inside another person's frame of reference. You look out through it. You see the world the way they see the world. You understand their paradigm. The essence of empathic listening is not that you agree with someone. It's not that you fully, deeply understand that person, emotionally as well as intellectually. Empathic listening involves much more than registering, reflecting, or even understanding the words that are said. Communication experts estimate, in fact, that the only 10% of our communication is represented by the words we say. Another 30% is represented by our sounds, and 60% by our body language. In empathic listening, you listen with your ears, but you also, and more importantly, listen with your eyes and with your heart. You listen for feelings, for meaning. You listen for behavior. You use your right brain as well as your left. You sense, you intuit, you feel. Empathic listening is so powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. Instead of projecting your own autobiography and assuming thoughts and feelings and motives and interpretation, you're dealing with the reality inside another person's head and heart. You're listening to understand. You're focused on receiving the deep communication of another human soul. In addition, empathic listening is the key to making deposits in emotional bank accounts because nothing you do is a deposit unless a other person perceive it as such. You can work your fingers to the bone to make a deposit, only to have it turn into withdrawal when a person regards your efforts as manipulative, self-serving, intimidating, condescending, because you don't understand what really matters to them. Empathic listening is, in and of itself, a tremendous deposit in emotional bank account. It's deeply therapeutic and healing because it gives a person psychological air. If all the air was suddenly sucked out of the room you are in right now, what would happen to your interest in this week? You wouldn't care about the book. You wouldn't care about anything except getting air. Survival would only be your own motivation. But now, if you have air, it doesn't motivate you. This is one of the greatest insights in the field of human motivation. Satisfied needs do not motivate. It's only the unsatisfied needs that motivates. Next to physical survival, the greatest need of human being is psychological survival. To be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, and to be appreciated. When you listen with empathy to another person, you give that person psychological air. And after the vital need is met, you can then focus on influencing and problem solving. This need for psychological air impacts communication in every area of life. I taught this concept in Chicago to the participant. The next morning, a man came up with me almost bursting with news. Let me tell you what happened last night, he said. I was trying to close a big commercial real estate deal while I was here in Chicago. I met with the principals, the attorneys, and the real estate agents who bought in with alternative proposal. I looked as if I were going to lose the deal. I had been working on this deal for 6 months, and in very real sense, all my eggs were in one basket. All of them. I panicked. I did everything I could. I pulled all stops. I used every sales technique I could. The final step was to say, could we delay this decision just a little longer? But the momentum was so strong, and then they were so disgusted by having this thing on so long, it was obvious they were going to close. So I said to myself, well, why not to try it? Why not practice what I've learned today and seek first to understand, then to be understood? I have got nothing to lose. I just said to the man, let me see if I really understand what your position is and what your concerns about my recommendations really are. When you feel I understand them, then we will see whether my proposal has any relevance or not.
Yeah.
I really tried to put myself in his shoes. I tried to verbalize his needs and concerns, and he began to open up. The more I sensed and expressed the things he was worried about, the results he anticipated, the more he opened up. Finally, in the middle of our conversation, he stood up and walked over the phone and dialed his wife. Putting his hand over the mouthpiece, he said, "You have got the deal." I was totally dumbfounded, he told me. I'm s- I still am this morning. We had a huge deposit in emotional bank account by giving the man psychological air. When it comes right down to it, and other things being relatively equal, the human dynamic is more important than the technical dimensions of the deal. Seeking first to understand, diagnosing before you prescribe is hard. It's much easier in short run to hand someone a pair of glasses that have fit you so well these many years. But in long run, it severely depends both P and PC. You can't achieve maximum interdependent production from an inaccurate understanding of where other people are coming from. And you can't have interpersonal PC, high emotional bank accounts, if the people you relate with don't really first understood feel understood. Empathic listening is also risky. It takes a great deal of security to go into deep listening experience because you open yourself up to be influenced. क्यों difficult है empathic listening? Because you have to open yourself to be influenced. First, you become vulnerable. It's a paradox in a sense because in order to have influence, you have to be influenced. Crazy. That means you have to really understand. Gaurav ji, maza aa raha hai?
Yes, yes.
That's why habits 1, 2, 3 are so foundational. They give you changeless inner core, the principal center from which you can handle the more outward vulnerability with peace and strength. Diagnose before you prescribe. Although it's risky and hard, seek first to understand and or diagnose before you prescribe is a correct principle manifest in many areas of life. It's the mark of all true professionals. It's critical for the optometrist, it's critical for the physician. You wouldn't have any confidence in a doctor's prescription until you had the confidence in the diagnosis. So, diagnosis is more important than the prescription. Your understanding of another person is way, way, way more important than finding and giving a solution or an advice. मैं skip कर रही हूँ ये.
हाँ ठीक है.
If you don't have confidence in your diagnosis, you won't have the confidence in the prescription. This principle is also true in sales. An effective salesperson seeks to first understand the needs, the concerns, and the situations of the customer. The amateur salesman sells products. The professional sells solution to needs and problems. It is a totally different approach. The professional learns how to diagnose, how to understand. He also learns how to relate people's needs to their products and services. And he has to have the integrity to say, my product or service will not meet that need if it will not. Diagnosing before you prescribe is also fundamental to law. The professional lawyer first gathers the fact to understand the situation, to understand the laws and precedents before preparing a case. A good lawyer almost writes the opposing attorney's case before he writes his own. It's also true in product design. You can imagine someone in a company saying this consumer research stuff is for the birds. Let's design products. In other words, forget understanding the consumer's buying habits and motives. Just design products. It wouldn't work. A good engineer will understand the forces and stresses at work before designing the bridge. A good teacher will assess the class before teaching. A good student will understand before he applies. A good parent will understand before evaluating or judging. The key to good judgment is understanding. By judging first, a person will never fully understand. Seek first to understand is a correct principle evident in all areas of life. It is generic, common denominator principle, but it has greatest power in the area of interpersonal relations. The four responses: evaluate, agree or disagree, probe, and objective questions, advise, give objective advice, interpretate, explain the motives. Because we listen autobiographically, मतलब अपन खुद की life को देखकर सुनते हैं, we need to respond in one of the four ways. We evaluate, we either agree or disagree. We probe, we ask questions from our own frame of reference. We advise, we give counsel based on our own experience. And we interpret. We try to figure people out to explain their motives, their behaviors based on our own motives and behavior. These responses come naturally to us. We are deeply scripted in them. We live around the models of them all the time. But how do they affect our ability to really understand? If I'm trying to communicate with my son, can he feel free to open himself up to me when I evaluate everything he says before I really explain it? Am I giving psychological air? How does he feel when I probe? Probing is playing 20 questions. It's
Hmm.
autobiographical. It controls, it invades. It's also logical, and language of logic is different from the language of sentiment and emotion. अपन अगर समझने के लिए क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं तो वो प्रोबिंग में आता है, ये कैसे हुआ, ये कैसे होगा,
Hmm.
इसका क्या मतलब. तो वो है ना, लैंग्वेज अलग है, वो लॉजिक की लैंग्वेज है, वो सेंटिमेंट और
Hmm.
इमोशन की नहीं है. अगर आप
Hmm.
प्रॉबिंग कर रहे हो, दैट मीन्स यू आर ट्राइंग वेरी हार्ड टू अंडरस्टैंड, but you are
Hmm.
actually not understanding. You can
Hmm.
play 20 questions all day and not find what's important to someone. Constant
Hmm.
probing is one of the main reasons parents do not get close to their children. How's it going, son? Fine. Well, what's been happening lately? Nothing. So, what's exciting in school? Not much. Oh God, मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था probing के बारे में. And what are your plans for this weekend? I don't know. You can't get him off the phone talking with his friends, but all he gives you is one or two word answers. Your house is motel where he eats and sleeps but never shares, never open up. And when you think about it honestly, why should he? If every time he does open up his soft underbelly, your elephant stomp it with autobiography advice. I told you so. We are so deeply scripted in our responses that we don't even realize when we use them. I've taught this concept to thousands of people in seminars across the country, and it never fails to shock them deeply as we role play empathic listening situations and they finally begin to listen to their own typical responses. But as they begin to see how they normally respond and learn how to listen with empathy, they can see the dramatic results in communication. To many, seek first to understand becomes the most exciting, the most immediately applicable of all seven habits. Let's take a look at what well might be typical communication between a father and teenager son. Look at father's words in terms of four different responses we have just described. Boy, dad, I've had it. School is for birds. अब आप बच्चे ने बोला कि स्कूल इज फॉर बर्ड्स, डैड
Hmm.
कंसर्न हो गया. व्हाट्स द मैटर सन, विच इज प्रोबिंग. उसने सुनने की कोशिश नहीं की.
Hmm.
ने दिमाग में क्या सोचा, इसने ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया, क्यों बोल दिया. वो एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं कर पाया उसका कम्युनिकेशन, वो सुन ही नहीं पाया. तो ये प्रोबिंग हो गई, ये एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग का पार्ट नहीं है, ये ऑपोजिट है. इट्स टोटली इम्प्रैक्टिकल, आई डोंट गेट अ थिंग आउट ऑफ इट. अब उस डैड ने एडवाइजिंग शुरू कर दी. कैसे? वेल, यू जस्ट कांट सी द बेनिफिट्स येट सन. आई फेल्ट द सेम वे व्हेन आई वाज योर एज. आई रिमेंबर थिंकिंग व्हाट अ वेस्ट ऑफ some of the classes were, but those classes turn out to be most helpful to me later on. Just hang in there, give it some time. First was probing, second was advising. I have given it 10 years of my life. Can you tell me what good x plus y is going to be to me as an auto mechanic? An auto mechanic, you have to be kidding. And now you're evaluating the son. No, I'm not. Look at Joe. He quit school, he's working on cars, and he's making a lot of money. Now that's practical. It may look that way now. अभी वापस advise करना शुरू हो गया, dad. But several years down the road, Joe going to wish he did stayed in school. You don't want to become an auto mechanic. You would need an education to prepare for you for something better than that. I don't know. Joe got a pretty good setup. Look, son, have you really tried probing, evaluating? Have been in high school 2 years now. Sure, I have tried. It's just a waste. Son bolta hai. That's highly respected school, son. Give them a little credit. Advising and evaluating again. Well, the other guy feel the same way I do. Do you realize how many sacrifices your mother and I have made to where you are? Again, evaluation शुरू हो गया. आप समझ गए ना गौरव जी, मतलब
Yes. Yes.
एडवाइस, evaluating, probing
Hmm.
अब
Hmm.
करते रहते
Hmm.
हैं.
Hmm.
अभी मुझे भी नहीं समझ में आ रहा एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग का एक्चुअल मीनिंग क्या होता है. Obviously, his father was well intended. Obviously, he wanted to help. But did he even begin to really understand? Let's look more carefully at the son, not just his words, but his thoughts and feelings expressed parenthetically below, and possible effects of some kind of his dad's autobiographical responses. लड़के ने बोला, बॉय डैड आई हैव हैड इट,
हाँ.
स्कूल इज फॉर द
Hmm.
बर्ड. तो सन
Hmm.
एक्चुअली में क्या बोल रहा है, आई वांट टू टॉक विद यू टू गेट योर
Hmm.
अटेंशन. व्हाट्स द मैटर सन, मतलब यू आर इंटरेस्टेड, गुड. It's totally impractical. I don't get things out of it. I've got a problem with school and I feel just terrible. Son ये बोलना चाह रहा है. Well, you just can't see the benefits yet. वो जब advice देना शुरू हो जाता है तो oh no, here comes chapter 3 of dad's autobiography. बच्चा तो अपने दिमाग में ये
Hmm.
सोचता है, I want to get to the problem. This isn't what I wanted to talk about. I don't really care how many miles he had gone through. I want to get the problem. Time won't solve my problem. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could just spit it out. बट उसको लगता है वो सामने वाले को ये बोल रहा है, पर सामने वाला समझने को रेडी नहीं है, सुनने को रेडी नहीं है. जब डैड ने बोला, आर यू किडिंग मी, यू वांट टू बी एन ऑटोमेटिक, तो लड़के को क्या लग रहा है, ही वुडंट लाइक मी इफ आई एम एन ऑटोमेटिक, ही वुडंट लाइक मी इफ आई डिडंट फिनिश द स्कूल, आई हैव टू जस्टिफाई व्हाट आई सेड. Oh boy, here comes lecture number 16. How do you know that, Dad? Do you really have an idea what I want? He's not a failure. He didn't finish school and he's not a failure. We are beating around the bush, Dad. If you just listen, I really need to talk to you about something important. जो एक्चुअल कन्वर्सेशन है वो तो हो ही
Hmm.
नहीं पा रही है इंसान दो
Hmm.
इंसान के बीच में. That's highly respected school, son. Give them a little credit. Oh, great. You were talking credibility. I wish I could talk about what I want to talk about. I have some credibility too. I'm not a moron. Here comes the guilt trip. Maybe I am a moron. The school is great. Mom, dad are great. And I am a moron. You just don't understand. That's the experience. At the end, son kya bolega? That's not the problem, dad. That's not it at all. I will never be able to tell you. I was dumb to try. Look, dad, it's just not good. Oh, never mind. I don't want to talk about this anyway. कन्वर्सेशन ही कहीं और गई, बिकॉज एडवाइस, इवेल्युएटिंग, प्रोबिंग बीच में आ गई. अपन ने सुनने समझने की कोशिश ही नहीं की कि उसको स्कूल क्यों पसंद नहीं आ रहा. अपन ने जस्टिफाई, उसके डैड ने ये सोच लिया कि इसने सोच भी कैसे लिया स्कूल अच्छा नहीं है, क्योंकि वो अपने कंसर्न स्टोरी, अरे इसको तो ऐसा लग रहा है वैसा लग रहा है, ओवर कंसर्न, ओवर वरिड हो गए. Can you see how limited we are when we try to understand another person on the basis of words alone, especially when we are looking at the person through our own glasses? Can you see how limiting our autobiographical responses are to the person who is genuinely trying to us to understand his autobiography? You will never be able to truly step inside another person to see the world as he sees it until you develop the pure desire, the strength of personal character, and the positive emotional bank account, as well as empathic listening skills to do it. स्ट्रॉन्ग डिजायर होनी चाहिए सामने वाले को अंडरस्टैंड करने की, समझने की कोशिश करना चाहिए वो क्यों कह रहा है, क्या कह रहा है, क्या कहना चाह रहा है, विदाउट जजिंग, विदाउट प्रोबिंग, विदाउट एडवाइजिंग. The skills, the tip of the iceberg of empathic listening involves 4 developmental stage. The first and least effective is to mimic content. Mimicking content is easy, just want to listen to words in someone's mouth and you repeat them. The second stage of empathic listening is to rephrase the content. It's the little more effective but still limited to the verbal communication. Boy, dad, I've had it. School is for the birds. You don't want to go to school anymore. Uske father ne ye suna. The third stage of brings to the right brain into operation. You reflect feeling. Oh, dad, I have had it. School is for the birds. You are really feeling frustrated. जब उसने बोला कि ओ डैड स्कूल इज फॉर द बर्ड्स, उसने ये नहीं सुना कि वो स्कूल के लिए क्या कह रहा है, उसने क्या सुना, कि यार ये तो मेरा बच्चा फ्रस्ट्रेटेड है. ये थर्ड लेवल ऑफ लिसनिंग हो गया. Now you're not paying as much attention to what he's saying as you are the way he feels about what he's saying. The fourth stage includes both the second and the third. You rephrase the content and reflect the feeling. Oh, dad, I have had it. School is for the birds. You are really frustrated about the school. The fourth level of listening है. Frustration is the feeling, school is the content. You're using both sides of your brain to understand both sides of his communication, which is the left brain and the right brain, logical and emotional. Now what happens when you use fourth stage of empathic listening skill is really incredible. As you authentically seek to understand, as you rephrase content. Oh my god, गौरव जी समझ में आ रहा है?
Hmm.
इसके दो स्टेप है एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग के. फर्स्ट इज टू रीफ्रेज द कंटेंट एंड रिफ्लेक्ट द फीलिंग. You
Hmm.
give him the psychological air. You also help him to work through his own thoughts and feelings. As he grows in his confidence of your sincere desire to really listen and understand, the barriers between what's going on inside him and what actually being communicated to you disappears. ये बोल रहा है अंदर जो इंसान की होता है उसके कम्युनिकेशन में एक बैरियर होता है. जब अपन उसके लेफ्ट ब्रेन और राइट ब्रेन अपने लेफ्ट और राइट ब्रेन से सुनते हैं, विच इज इमोशन भी सुन रहे हैं जो वो बोल नहीं रहा, पर अपन फील कर सकते हैं कि वो फ्रस्ट्रेटेड है इसलिए वो जो बोल रहा है. और फ्रस्ट्रेटेड इसके बारे में, स्कूल के बारे में. तो अपन ने कंटेंट भी पकड़ लिया और अपन ने इमोशन भी पकड़ लिया. Empathic listening stages: mimicking content, rephrasing content, reflecting the feeling. Fourth, which is empathic listening, is rephrasing the content and reflecting the feeling.
Within the field.
It opens a soul to soul flow. He's not thinking, feeling one thing and communicating other. He begins to trust you with his innermost tender feelings and thoughts. Boy, dad, I've had it. School is for the birds. I want to talk with you to get your attention. You're really frustrated about school. That's right. That's how I feel. I sure am. It's totally impractical. I'm not getting a thing out of it. You feel like school's not doing you any good. Let me think. Is that what I mean? Sa- जब ये अपन डैड बोलता है यू फील लाइक स्कूल इज
Hmm.
नॉट डूइंग यू एनी गुड, सन सोचता है लेट मी थिंक, इज दैट व्हाट आई मीन? Well, yeah, I'm just not learning anything that's going to help me. I mean, look at Joe. He's dropped out of school and is working on cars. He's making money. Now that's practical. You feel Joe really has the right idea. Well, I guess he does in a way. He really is making money now. In few years, I bet he will probably be ticked off at himself. You think Joe is going to feel he made the wrong decision? He's got to just look at what he's giving up. I mean, if you don't have an education, you just can't make it in this world. Education is really important. Oh, yeah, I mean, if you don't have a diploma, you can't get jobs or go to school. What are you going to do? You just have to get an education. It's important to your future. It is. And you know what? I'm really worried. Listen, what you won't tell mom, will you? You don't want your mom to find out. इसमें डैड क्या कर रहा है, बार बार रीफ्रेज कर रहा है उसके कंटेंट को और इमोशन को. दैट्स इट. ना वो क्वेश्चन
Hmm.
पूछ रहा है, ना वो एडवाइस दे रहा है, ना वो क्या कहते हैं, एडवाइस भी नहीं दे रहा, क्वेश्चन भी नहीं पूछ रहा, और इवेलुएट भी नहीं कर रहा और जज भी नहीं कर रहा सन को. सिर्फ रीफ्रेज कर रहा है उसके जो बोल रहा है, उसकी फीलिंग्स को समझ के फीलिंग्स को शब्द में कन्वर्ट कर रहा है. Well, not really. Oh, I guess you can tell her. She's probably find out anyway. Look, I took this test today, this reading test, and dad, they said I'm reading on a fourth grade level, fourth grade, and I'm junior in high school. My God, communication ही पूरा change हो गया गौरव जी.
Hmm. Hmm.
What a difference real understanding can make. All the well meaning advice in the world won't amount to a hill of beans if you're not even addressing the real problem. And we will never get to the problem if we are so caught up in our autobiography, on our own paradigms, if we don't take off our glasses long enough to see the world from another point of view. I'm going to flunk that. I guess I will. I figure if I'm going to flunk, I might as well quit, but I don't want to quit. तो फिर डैड क्या बोलता है, यू फील टॉर्न, यू आर इन द मिडल ऑफ डिलेमा. What do you think I should do, dad? Because the dad was constantly
Hmm.
rephrasing him and rephrasing his emotions and making him feel safe and making and really listening to him. बच्चा खुद से communicate कर पा रहा था dad के through. By seeking first to understand, this father had just turned a transactional opportunity into a transformational opportunity. Instead of interacting on a surface, get the job done level of communication, he has created a situation in which he can now have transforming impact, not only on his son, but also on the relationship. By setting aside his own autobiography and really seeking to understand, he has made a tremendous deposit in emotional bank account and has empowered his son to open layer upon layer and to get to the real issue. Now the father and son are on the same side of the table looking at the problem instead of on opposite sides looking across each other. The son is opening his father's autobiography, asking for advice. Even as a father begins to counsel, however, he needs to be sensitive to his son's communication. As long as the response is logical, the father can effectively ask questions and give counsel. But the moment the response becomes emotional, he needs to go back to empathic listening. क्या समझ में आया इससे?
That basically you need to listen to the person and understand what he has to say instead of जो अपने लोगों का बात सुनते हैं और उसको सुनने के पहले ही we have an answer ready. What that person is trying to say or what that person is feeling or understanding, वो अपने सोचते या समझते ही नहीं है.
और वो अपन समझेंगे कैसे, एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग कैसे होती है?
कि एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग होती है कि इंस्टेड ऑफ जजिंग अ पर्सन यू ट्राई टू गेट व्हाट इज देयर इन हिज माइंड. Like when the father spoke to the son, last में the son asked the father कि what should I do. First
टेक्निक
conversation
क्या है?
में तो वो पूछा
क्या
ही नहीं.
एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग की?
What?
व्हाट इज द टेक्निक? व्हाट आर द टू स्टेप्स फॉर एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग एक्शन फॉर्म में?
The two steps is वो जो दो words थे ना in the previous pages जो last step का था, step 4,
व्हिच इज
which is this
रीजनिंग द
rephrasing
कंटेंट.
content and reflecting the feeling.
अब इसमें लास्ट में ये क्या बोल रहा है?
Hmm.
As long as the response is logical, the father can effectively ask questions and give counsel.
Hmm.
But the moment the response becomes emotional, मतलब फादर अटैच हो रहा है सन को किसी कहीं तक ले जाने में, अगर वो डर रहा है, अगर वो अपनी आइडेंटिटी बच्चे से निकाल रहा है, तो वो इमोशनल हो जाएगा, तो वो रिएक्ट करेगा, वो बात नहीं कर पाएगा. एंड एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग इज एन एक्टिव वर्क. इट्स अ रिस्पॉन्स, नॉट अ रिएक्शन. जैसे गौरव जी, आप मुझे कुछ भी बोलो,
Like,
कुछ भी बोलो. लेट्स स्टार्ट अ कन्वर्सेशन. लेट्स प्रैक्टिस एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग.
okay, so let's start a conversation. What you mentioned in the group, key plan for Sunday night when you're going to come to Delhi.
हम्म.
So, what is your plan for Sunday night?
Mm.
नहीं कुछ और टॉपिक.
So you rephrase my body language now.
Okay. I really don't know how.
So अभी मेरे मेरे एक्सप्रेशन से आपको क्या लगा?
You have something in your mind about the upcoming.
फीलिंग क्या थी मेरी?
Sorry.
फीलिंग क्या आपको आएगी कि रिचा की फीलिंग कैसी हो रही है जब आपने मेरे को ये बोला?
I thought the feeling was a happy feeling.
हम्म, मैंने आपको बोला कि
Hmm.
लेट्स प्रैक्टिस एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग.
Hmm.
तो व्हाट यू हैव टू से इज, ओ so you are excited and you are happy about uh,
Hmm.
uh, empathic listening, you want to try an activity.
Hmm.
तो आपने मुझे रीफ्रेज किया एंड
हाँ.
उसमें क्या इमोशन देखा कि अच्छा रिचा इज हैप्पी एंड एक्साइटेड अबाउट इट,
Hmm.
तो वो रीफ्रेजिंग हो गया.
Hmm.
फिर आप बोल सकते हो लेट्स डू इट. ठीक है, देन मैं बोलती हूँ अच्छा आप किसी भी चीज के बारे में बात करो.
Hmm.
तो आपने बोला कि अच्छा लेट्स डू द संडे नाइट, यू वर टॉकिंग अबाउट द पार्टी,
Hmm.
राइट? तो I could have said, oh, I see you are concerned. So the way I had to react was, oh, you were concerned about uh, about having a party. Thank you for being that. But मैंने क्या बोला?
Hmm.
हम्म, ये टॉपिक सही नहीं है. वो क्या था? रिएक्शन था.
Hmm.
एंड मेरे रिएक्शन से आप पुट ऑफ हो गए कि यार ये रिएक्शन किया, ये जज कर रही है मुझे. मैंने कई टॉपिक गलत तो नहीं चूज कर लिया?
Hmm. हाँ ठीक है, हमको अब समझ में आ रहा है.
Oh gosh.
हाँ.
But as an as you being an active empathic listening, you
Hmm.
can say, Acha, okay, Richa, are you confused about this topic? Should we choose another
Hmm.
topic? I
Hmm.
you are confused about which topic to choose for
Hmm.
empathic learning.
Hmm.
Are you understanding?
Yes.
Like, it's a very different way of communicating,
Communicating. हाँ.
and it's something we have to practice.
Hmm.
So अभी क्या करना है, अपन जब बात कर रहे हैं, instead of thinking ki what to reply, what should be the reply, what the other
Hmm.
people will think, what is it that I need
Hmm.
to speak and this and that.
Hmm.
जो मैं भी सोच रही थी कि टॉपिक क्या होना चाहिए था, साला मैं समझने की कोशिश ही नहीं कर रही आप क्या बोल रहे हो.
Hmm.
आई डिडंट लिसन टू यू. आई डिडंट अंडरस्टूड कि आप क्यों बोल रहे हो संडे वाला इवेंट के टॉपिक लेने के लिए. आई डिडंट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड.
Hmm.
आई वाज लाइक कि सही है, गलत है, ऐसा होना चाहिए, वैसा होना चाहिए, नहीं होना चाहिए. मैं उन सब चीजों में चलेगी. मैंने
Hmm.
ये नहीं सुना कि गौरव जी संडे वाले टॉपिक के लिए क्यों बोल रहे
Hmm.
हैं. What I could have said is, I think you're concerned about me. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for being concerned about the Saturday party thing. I
Hmm.
We should really go ahead and plan about that. Something like that. Are you
Hmm.
understanding?
हाँ हाँ, yes I am.
तो मैंने रिफ्रेज भी किया आपको, और
Hmm.
मैंने एक इमोशन भी डाल दिया विच इज गौरव
Hmm.
कंसर्न्ड. तो
Hmm.
वो चीज को समझना पकड़ना बहुत बड़ी चीज है.
Hmm.
मैं
Hmm.
उसको पकड़ ही नहीं रही थी. मैं क्या कर रही थी, यार ये सही टॉपिक है या नहीं, ये टॉपिक होना चाहिए या नहीं होना चाहिए. आई यू
Okay.
अंडरस्टैंडिंग?
Yes. Yes.
आई वाज बीइंग रिएक्टिव एंड
Hmm.
नॉट डूइंग एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग.
Hmm.
क्लियर कट है.
Hmm.
अभी तो जान निकल जाएगी जब अपन शुरू करेंगे.
करेंगे हाँ. Hmm.
आज यही एंड करेंगे इसको, पर इसको
Okay.
लेके बहुत खुशी खुशी जाते हैं और जा जाके
Yeah.
सुनते हैं
Done.
उन सबको कि सामने वाला एक्चुअली में अपन को बोल क्या रहा है.
Hmm.
लेट्स डू इट.
Okay. Done.
परफेक्ट. सी यू टुमारो.
See
वी
you
विल
tomorrow.
टुमारो, हाँ, अबाउट इट कि किसको
हाँ
क्या
ठीक है.
ब्रेक थ्रू वाल एम्पैथिक लिसनिंग से.
ठीक है. Okay.
परफेक्ट,
Hmm.
मजा आ गया यार,
Hmm.
आज बहुत पावरफुल क्लास थी. Just
Okay.
rephrase and
Hmm.
figure out the emotion being communicating. Express the feeling, attach the feeling, and rephrase the other person. That's it. Which is a
Yeah.
strong desire we have to create to understand the other human being and another human being's communication.
Mm-hmm.
ये फैक्ट है कि अपन कम्युनिकेट करते ही नहीं है
Hmm.
एक दूसरे से.
Hmm.
वी थिंक वी आर कम्युनिकेटिंग बट वी डोंट कम्युनिकेट.
Hmm.
अपन
Hmm.
सब खुद के दिमाग में रहते हैं.
Hmm.
जैसे आपने मुझे बोला शुड वी टेक संडे वाले का इवेंट पार्टी वाला टॉपिक, आई
Hmm.
गॉट फिगर्ड. क्यों?